冬残奥会运动委员会主席姚姚女士出席今天的发布会。2月1号的时候，她也跟我们一起在这个主发布厅出现。通过视频与大家见面的是我们防控办公室的副主任黄春先生。今天的主题是冬奥会上的女性力量。我先特别自豪地说，那么本届冬奥会是有史以来女性运动员参与这个比例最高的一届冬奥会，也是女性运动员参与的项目最多的一届冬奥会。在新增的项目中，我们也充分地考虑了女性运动员平等参赛的问题。从第一届冬奥会上仅有10余名女性选手，到第3届冬奥会开幕式上第1位女性运动员旗手出现，从第7届冬奥会上首位女性运动员代表进行运动员宣誓，到如今1300多名巾帼英雄披甲持竿踏冰飞驰，冬奥的近100年历史也是她力量的成长史。在本届冬奥会中，我们看到了非常多耀眼的这个女性，有参加过多届的冬奥会，仍然保持着热情与勇气的老将，有初登大赛但是这个锐气不可摧的00后的姑娘，有戮力同心携手奋进的赛场的姐妹花，还有兼职参赛斩获铜牌的天眷女子。她们的出现让冬奥这个冰雪盛会变得更加的闪耀动人，意义非凡。她们的登场集中代表了女性在体育舞台走到台前发光发亮。下面呢，我继续通报一些情况。首先是赛事情况。昨天9个竞赛场馆分别进行了12个小项比赛，共产生了7枚金牌。今天7个竞赛场馆将进行11个，预计产生4枚金牌。防疫情况方面，2月13日0点至23点59分，机场入境涉奥人员总数累计32人，其中运动员及随队官员14人，其他利益相关方18人。经海关检测后复检阳性3人，其中运动员及随队官员1人，其他利益相关方2人。2月13日0点至23点59分，闭环内核酸检测总次数69872，其中运动员及随队官员6051，其他利益相关方63821，复检阳性0人。北京冬奥会入境的涉奥人员和相关的工作人员实行闭环管理，与社会面是完全隔开。最后是天气情况，预计今天白天赛区晴，夜间云量增多。云顶滑雪公园明天早晨还是有零星的小雪，今天早晨风力较强。延庆赛区山顶最大阵风19米每秒，中午减弱至11米每秒。气温仍然较低，北京赛区零下9度至0度，延庆赛区山顶是零下23度到零下21度，张家口赛区零下23度至零下17度，风寒的效应还是比较明显。情况通报完毕，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's kick off a quick presentation to you on gender equality and portrayal, something that we made quite a big movement on the last few years. So let's start with from the BOCOG side, from Yang Yang, who's chair of the Athletes Commission. Yang Yang, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. 大家好。过去的10天，我相信大家和我一样，都是对我们的这个所有赛场上的这些表现感到非常受鼓舞。每天除了鼓舞还有感动。那么另外呢，尤其是女性运动员啊，我相信大家和我一样，在那么像谷爱凌那样的项目，我说简直是太不可思议了。然后我甚至让我的女儿去看她的比赛，我也希望她的表现能够去影响到更多的小朋友敢于突破自我。那么我简单汇报一下，在组委会层面上我熟悉的领域里边，刚才 贾勇老师已经讲了一下组委会的相关情况。那么我说一下，在我熟悉的领域，运动员委员会，我们19名委员里边有14名是女性。那么其实，在我们委员会里边，我可能要担心的是如何保护男运动员的这个相关权益。那么另外一个在这个另外一个领域，是我认为在奥运会期间大家应该非常关注的，就是项目管理这一块儿，运动项目管理。那么我们在项目经理一共有11位，最近的奥运会能够顺利进行，他们是做出了巨大的这个贡献。目前也是在保证整个奥运赛事的这个能够顺利进行的重要力量。那么在11位这个项目经理里边，我们是有7名是女性，也就是说一大半都是由这个女性的这个经理来负责整个赛事的运营，所以为他们感到骄傲。那从我个人角度来说呢，我觉得在这样的一个赛事当中，无论我们组委会的这个在这样的一个领导下，我相信在女运动员这些表现，她们不单是能够展示像花样滑冰的这样的一个美，同时也能够展示像空中技巧这样的一个飒。那么冬季运动让我们女性从不同的角度可以发现更美的自己，同时也从不同的角度来表达我们不一样的自己，那么挑战我们的极限。最后呢，我们也更拓展了对美的一个定义。所以在这里呢，我也向所有的女性运动员致敬。另外呢，我相信她们的表现会鼓励更多的女性来追求自己的梦想，那么勇于突破自己。谢谢大家。
Thank you very much, Yang Yang, indeed. And let me now just come to Yanis in a moment to talk about gender portrayal and how we're moving things along in broadcasting. But just to give you a few kind of general points, obviously the Olympic Games is a great platform for promoting gender equality around the world. And as you saw in Tokyo, the figures were gender balanced, 48.8% of women participating, so very, very nearly there. The Youth Olympic Games in Lausanne, we actually did reach full gender parity, and here in Beijing, Winter Games is a little bit behind, but not much. We have a record number, 45.4% women competing, the highest representation at the Olympic Winter Games. How did we achieve this? Obviously, it's a strategic priority in Olympic Agenda 2020 and 2020+5. They're really pushing that forward. And secondly, by cooperating, working closely with all of our stakeholders, international federations, national Olympic committees, organising committees, broadcasters, and of course our own OBS. And working through all the issues here systematically, schedules, portrayal, and so on. Just to start on the Olympic programme, with the changes made specifically for Beijing 2022, skating joined the federations of biathlon and curling in reaching gender equality in the Olympic programme, while bobsleigh, skeleton, ice hockey, luge and ski federations all increased their female participation. In addition, the disciplines of skeleton, speed skating, alpine skiing, cross-country, freestyle and snowboard all have moved towards gender balance for the first time. In Beijing, we have the highest number of women events, that's 46, thanks to the addition to the programme of women's monobob, which I think happens today, big air skiing for both men and women. And in addition, this is sometimes forgotten, in addition, 4 new mixed team events. Mixed team aerials, mixed team ski jumping, mixed team snowboard cross, short track speed skating, mixed team relay. And these are actually very, very important because it sends a signal from the IOC to the National Olympic Committees that the mixed events are important, that they need to build up the capacity of their women's teams and invest in their women's teams, women athletes. And that's very important for bringing forward, obviously then, for individual events as well. And therefore, we have 53% of events in Beijing compared to 46% in Pyeongchang that will feature women. Just to focus on a couple of day-to-day things, and Yanis, I think, will take over in a second. You know, the schedule for the Games comes many years ahead. It's fixed about 18 months before the Games. And we're doing a number of smaller things, detailed things, to really push gender equality and appearance in the programme. And I'll give you one example. I'm sure Yannis will give you many more, but we moved ski jumping for the first time ever. It was the first medal event in ski jump was a women's competition on day one, and that provided some iconic images of women athletes there. And I think that's quite important, something I guess we'll touch on. Just to give you very quickly what we'll be doing next. Obviously, Paris will soon be upon us. I'm sure everyone is looking forward to 2024. We've set a goal of 50% female participation, with exactly 5,250 men, 5,250 women taking part. I'm not sure that any other sporting organisation can really match, big sporting organisation can really match that in terms of international events. And obviously in regards of the Winter Games coming up in Milano Cortina 2026, we'll also be pushing for equality. So that's just to give you a quick tour d'horizon of what we're doing and what we still have to do. And one of those key things that we have to do is work on portrayal, broadcasting, and Yannis, I think, can give us a few words on what he's been doing, what his team's been doing. Yannis.
Thank you very, very much, Mark, and it's a pleasure to be meeting with all of you again today. First of all, allow me to say that I could hardly think of a more appropriate timing for us sharing this information, given the fact that only in a few minutes we will have the medals ceremony for the introduction of a fantastic women's event, the women's monobob. So this is an introduction for these games. Mark went through a number of efforts that had been taking place on the program front. Why is this important? This is the content. This is the starting point, and this is actually one of the most difficult things because it takes a long time. It takes a lot of consultation and organization together with all the stakeholders, with international federations, with the National Olympic Committees and so on. And I would like, on behalf of media, on behalf of broadcasters, to pay tribute to this incredible work that has been going on for a number of years now, led on the IOC side by Irina Gladhig, who is responsible for the sports program for the Winter Games. We've been working very close together to ensure this balance. I believe that compared to Pyeongchang, we have made very, very significant steps forward, both in terms of the volume of content, but also how it is distributed within the overall schedule of the games. You will see that in the last weekend, we have, in terms of team sports, we will have the men's final on the last day for hockey, but we will have women's final for curling. The same goes for biathlon and cross country. It's male, women. It is more or less the same happening for bobsleigh and skeleton. So we worked in details trying to balance this. This is important work, but I think equally important is the way we showcase. And for us, being responsible for the host broadcasting of the games at OBS, obviously the guidelines that have been developed and are constantly updated during the last years, the portrayal guidelines of the IOC is our Bible. It is, unlike other religious documents, a Bible which is constantly updated, which is where we introduce new ideas, but this also becomes the Bible of all our production crews. Every single person that participates in our coverage is intimate with the details of this document. When they arrive in the city, but also months before that, we do special sessions where we brief them about the standard of coverage that we want to have, how to ensure that we avoid any stereotyping, how to ensure that we really cover men and women on the same basis, which is the basis of portraying their sporting prowess. It's not about who is beautiful or attractive. It's about portraying huge athletes, whether they are men or women. Also, we work on a number of other details, like ensuring, for example, in the interviews that we do in the mixed zones on behalf of broadcasters, that men and women are asked essentially similar questions, that there is no bias there. Every single second, we monitor our production through our production quality control here in the IBC. We have our producers, and also we have very experienced independent producers who constantly monitor and make sure that our directors and producers on the ground follow completely these guidelines. There have been instances when they intervene, when they notice something, and this was corrected. Not everything is perfect, but I can tell you that there's a lot of attention being paid there. The same work goes also for the commentators. OBS is offering very comprehensive commentary to a number of our broadcasters, and all our commentators, again, have been trained and have been briefed in order to make sure that our coverage and the way we portray and describe the events really do not fall prey to any type of bias. Obviously, we have equal coverage. We cover everything in terms of women and men events, and we cover all of them with exactly the same means and the same quality of production. There is no difference there. Very, very important, and many of you may understand that because you belong to our industry, we make sure also that we do not follow different type of framing, different type of portrayal in the way we choose to cover and make our shooting, make our filming, make our framing with the cameras. Very, very important to make sure that men and women are portrayed in the same way. This is more or less the work that we are doing in terms of portrayal with OBS. I could speak to you about other initiatives that have to do with our staffing, with the way OBS has progressed through the years in achieving in very, very senior positions to have more women colleagues. But I would like to also mention the work that's been done on the level of the platforms of the IOC, especially the work that's being done on Olympics.com. As you know, Olympics.com on the content side is led by Mary Byrne, a woman. Our director of production is a woman. Our director of daily content is a woman. It's a team which is very, very passionate about ensuring this, not only that we follow the guidelines, but ensuring and counting every single piece of content and making sure that we have this balance. Actually, in terms of news on Olympics.com, 37.1% of the content relates to female athletes, 30.1% relates to mixed stories that have to do both with women and men athletes, and 32.5% have to do with male stories. So if anything, there is a slight bias on the side of women. Allow me to say here that, as you probably know, there was an international survey a few years ago that found out that a shocking 4% only is the coverage of women's sports in media around the world. I keep on repeating this number because I don't think it's a bad thing to be frank among ourselves that also we need to do a lot. As media, as broadcasters, as people working in sports media, we have a lot to do. Of course, what the event is and how the program is made is important, and we've seen the progress that it's made, but the showcasing of women's sport is not where it should be. And also we need to be aware that the pandemic has not hit women's sports and men's sports in the same way. 21% of women are thinking of abandoning sports because it has become very hard with them with the pandemic. So those are objective things with which we need to deal, and I would like to close with that because one thing is to celebrate the achievements. The most important thing is to identify the gap and see how we can collectively do better. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yanis. Okay, open for any questions. Yeah, gentleman in red there, and then we'll come to Christine Brennan from USA Today. Yeah, so.
Well, thank you, Mark. Zheng Yibing from CDTN. My question is, 7 sports events are newly added to the 24th Winter Games here in Beijing, including freestyle skiing big air. Among them, 6 have women athletes participating. So my question is, do you encourage women athletes to compete in Nordic combined in the next Winter Games? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter for all the federations, obviously, but I think if you talk to FIS, you'll know that the Skiing Federation, you'll know that they are keen to improve, and they have improved in a lot of their disciplines. So yes, I would encourage women to compete in all those events, and I would encourage, and I don't need to encourage because I know FIS are on it, that they would be encouraged to try to promote women's sport in all those domains. So yeah, Christine.
Thank you, Mark. I know how much you love hypothetical questions. As you know, we're expecting a very big decision here in a few hours. I'm wondering if you can walk us through what your plan is for responding to the CAS decision, and if you are game to discuss hypotheticals, what could you walk us through your response if you win versus if you lose, and do you appeal, even though the time is very, very short on the merits of the case? So, sorry, a lot of questions there, but I figure you know what I'm getting at. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can address some of that, but not all of it. I mean, I think it's kind of as well that I remind all of us that this decision is only about the provisional suspension of her start in future events, and only about that. And the IOC will, of course, we will respect the CAS decision, whatever that may be. It's not about the medal ceremonies or future ceremonies. And I guess for us, and for all of you, this is an unsatisfactory situation. We would have liked and have asked for the parties to agree to have the whole case in its entirety, or in legal parlance on its merits, as some of you will know, being settled once and for all before this competition starts. We still would hope for that, although I think that's unlikely. Unfortunately, the parties haven't agreed on this, and this is why we're left in this difficult dilemma with regard to the topic which concerns us here also, the victory ceremony, not just taking part in the events which start tomorrow. It's a deeply concerning situation for us, and of course for the athletes, all of the athletes concerned from whatever country they come. There's an ongoing procedure which you all know about. It's not in our hands. We don't yet know the results, and we do not even know when the results of that larger procedure will come. I would warn you that they probably won't come within the next hours or days. We will only have the result of the specific CAS decision coming at, I think, 2 it will be reported. What I can tell you is that we are in consultation with the different National Olympic Committees on how best to address this dilemma for their teams and for their athletes. We're speaking to the National Olympic Committees about the medal ceremony, whilst at the same time, of course, fully respecting the rule of law. Let me also remind you that if CAS decides to let this athlete, Kamila Valieva, start tomorrow, it does not mean, on the one hand, that she has not committed a doping offence, and at the same time, if CAS decides to not let her start, it does not mean that the doping offence has been confirmed. So I think people need to be very clear on that. What we will have in either case will be a decision where there is an ongoing procedure against her, of which we do not know the final result. But in all this, we have to respect, including the IOC, the full process and all the measures taken, whatever our position is. And finally, if I could remind you, and then I probably won't be saying very much more, Christine, but if I can remind everybody that Kamila Valieva is a minor. She's 15 years old. We all respect the process and rule of law, but I think it's even more important in this case that we avoid speculation on what is a very, very delicate case.
If I could, thank you. If I
Sure.
could just follow up. Understood about the team ceremony, the medal ceremony. This decision today, is it your understanding that absolutely it will tell us, this particular part of whether it overturns the Russian panel's decision or not, this will tell us if she is going to be allowed to compete in the women's competition, or is there potential for something more between the decision and then the, 6, 7 p.m. start time tomorrow?
Yeah. I can't tell you the absolute gospel truth, but is my understanding that the decision that will come, that will be rendered to you at 2 o'clock here, I think, will tell you whether she will or will not be competing as from tomorrow. but I can't give you chapter and verse because I'm not involved in the process. So
Thank you very much. Thanks.
hope that was hopefully helpful. Yeah, lady there in black.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for your time. Selena Wang from CNN. I've got a simple question here. How could it have taken 6 weeks for Kamila Valieva's drug test to come back? Who dropped the ball?
Good question, and one I don't have the answer for. As you know, it was a WADA-accredited laboratory in Stockholm which did the testing, and the test, I think, arrived on the 8th or 9th, the 8th, I think. So I don't have an answer to that question. I'm sure, like you, everyone will be trying to find out what the answer is.
And just one more. Regardless of what is decided, we'll find out in a few hours. How should clean athletes feel about the decision that is made?
The clean athletes should continue to have confidence in the system. The system, I'm afraid, is slow. Justice, I'm afraid the wheels of justice do run slowly. We would like them to run faster so that there would be clarity for everybody involved, for all of the athletes. And that includes Valieva, that also includes the other teams that are hoping for medals. We would really like that, but I think what you can see that this is being done thoroughly, that this is being done properly, and there's a due process. And as with all due processes in law, I don't know which country you're from, but it does take time, but it's important that the process is done and seen to be done properly.
From the U.S., and thank you, Mark.
Pleasure. Yeah, let's have a lady here and then Carlos Groman from Reuters.
Thank you, Mark. I'm with China Daily, and the question is to you. It's concerning the gender subject. In which sport do you have the plan to further increase the percentage of the female athletes? And have you met any difficulty while in the efforts of involving more female athletes in the Olympics? And if so, what are those difficulties? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it may surprise you to know, but I'm not an expert in our gender, the work that we're doing on gender. I can give you kind of a headline. Obviously, in terms of which sports do we think we should increase, it's clear. In the games of the Olympiad, in the summer games, as some people call them, we are reaching 50-50. So they're in the sense of the pure numbers, the job is done. There are some winter sports and some winter federations that understand that they still have work to do, and we will support them in that work. And our ultimate goal, hopefully by Milano Cortina in 4 years' time, will be to reach gender parity there as well. Carlos Groman from Reuters.
Thanks, Mark. Carlos Groman from Reuters. A question regarding the ROC. Have there been any talks, because the ROC was essentially not sanctioned in the entire process from Sochi onwards? Will there be any talks following this case about having tarnished another Olympics with a doping case that may or not affect the Olympics, but there is a positive test out there? Thank you.
I mean, obviously, we're going to go away after this. Everyone will go away after this and look at all of the facts and everything involved. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe that in the inquiry that no finger was pointed at the Russian Olympic Committee, and that largely it was seen as a state-sponsored process that was under discussion. So, yes, of course, everything will be looked at, but it's a little bit prejudging the whole thing at the moment. We are also, by the way, talking just about one case. It's a very important case. It's a case which needs to be solved. But I think if we based all of our actions on one case, it would be probably not wise. Yeah, lady there in yellow, and then we'll come to Steve from AP.
谢谢马克，我想问一下杨洋女士，我想问一下，在中国代表团中男女比例是多少？特别是在谷爱凌的成绩和就是昨天3000米接力的成绩中，也是我们女性的成绩特别好，她们已经在这个世界领先金牌这个行列了。想请您介绍一下女性在整个代表团中有这么好的成绩，您也帮我们点评点评，谢谢。
关于那个具体的数据，我可以晚一点给你。但是呢，基于中国运动的发展啊，我自己亲身经历了过去30-40年的这样的一个发展。我们曾经有一段时间叫 阴盛阳衰，就是因为女性运动员一直发展的都是非常好，女性运动在这个竞技体育层面上。那么这些年呢，我们也看男子运动也在逐渐的在提升，所以说在我的成长经历当中，我觉得女性运动员在整个的这个训练支持、训练保障，然后在我们的这个发展过程当中得到了大力的支持，所以我也自己非常幸运的有机会能够站在奥运的赛场上。那么这一次中国代表团的表现，就像我刚才讲的。我用他们的故事来激励我自己的女儿，我希望她也能够像这些运动员一样，尤其这些女孩子一样，变得非常勇敢，能够在未来去追逐他们想做的事情。那我相信很多的妈妈像我一样，都是希望能够用这些运动员的故事来激励他们的孩子能够去成长。所以说谢谢你的问题。
Yeah, Steve Wade from AP.
Mark, hi, Stephen Wade from AP. Since we're talking about gender and we're talking about women, in the case of this very young Russian skater, what can you do to protect athletes who are so young? 15 years is incredibly young. This is an adolescent. We're seeing younger and younger athletes participating. What is the IOC's responsibility to sort of govern this and protect post-puberty athletes who barely, are able to make decisions on their own? It seems like we should have some limit on the age that athletes can be participating in the Olympics. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's two issues here, well, many issues, but I mean, clearly, firstly, it's for each team to make sure, each National Olympic Committee to make sure that there are adequate safeguards, and we hope and we are confident that they're doing that, but also the IOC is playing its part. So all of the NOCs are allowed to apply for chaperones for their athletes. We have athlete welfare officers. Again, they're allowed to ask for multiple athlete welfare officers within their teams. Whole range of campaigns as well, working within the village. And we have been running seminars, and we work seminars in terms of safeguarding. I think there's a course now that we're offering for safeguarding officers. So it's slow work. It's not something that's going to be changed overnight, but I think if you start getting safeguarding officers into place, that will certainly help it. And as I say, we offer extra support within the village and to the teams, but the teams ultimately have to take responsibility for that. But what I would also say is, yes, it's a concern, but let's not take away the opportunity and the joy that sport, participating in sport can bring to young people of any gender, of all genders who want to take part in the Olympic Games. We should offer that if we can. It needs to be done in a safe and secure way. But yes, there are certainly issues. Lady from the BBC there, I think it is.
It's a question for Mark on the Valieva case. Mark, I appreciate, this is ongoing, but how damaging is it that this has dominated a large part of these games, and for many people it might be what these games are remembered for?
Yeah, I sincerely hope not, and I would imagine a lot of people sincerely hope not. Yes, it's very important that we get to the bottom of this, and yes, it's important that the media and the press concentrate on this, but I would say outside of here, actually, a lot of people are still watching, enjoying the games. It's not to dismiss this issue, that's very important. But I would say the vast majority of coverage and the vast majority of coverage in newspapers and TV around the world and digital is on the sport, which is as we would all want it to be. And anything that takes away from that is terrible. What I would also say is that this is, at the moment, I think one of two cases. And by the way, the other thing to say is that this is a case which actually wasn't here. It was, in fact, the case happened before Christmas. Unfortunately, it has ramifications for here, and those ramifications need to be dealt with, and they will be dealt with. And it's unfortunate. Of course, it's unfortunate. And as soon as we can get back to concentrating on sport, then I think we'll all be very happy. Yeah, gentleman here.
Hello, Angus Watson from CNN. My question's for Ms. Yang. It's about representation. What is the Athletes Commission doing to make sport a safe place for LGBT athletes? And would China welcome an openly gay athlete onto its team?
谢谢你的问题。我们在我们的法律下，我们都非常尊重所有的这个权益。那么我们也在欢迎多样性的这个表达。那么在这些权益上具体的事情，我觉得还是要具体去处理。那么目前呢，我们还没有遇到一个具体的 case， 但整个委员会我们都是年轻的运动员，然后也经历过4到5届的奥运会，所以大家对多样性的这种保护是非常积极的。所以也希望你能够给一些具体的这样的一些案例，我相信我们运动员委员会会积极的和这些多样性的这样的一个参与者去合作，然后支持大家的这个多样性的这种展示。谢谢。
Thank you. Let's have a question over here, and then I'm going to move over here because I've been ignoring this side of the room. So yeah, gentleman here first.
Hi, Mark. Jonathan Crane from Deutsche Welle. You mentioned that the IOC wanted everything kind of tied up, including whether Valieva is guilty of doping or not, but not all parties agreed. Can you say which party didn't agree and why? And if there is still a chance that this could all be resolved here in Beijing, is there kind of precedent to maybe delay the event so that there is time for all this to be heard? Thank you.
No, I think obviously I can't, and I actually don't know the answer. We asked for all parties to come to some kind of agreement if they could to hear the case on its merits, as I said earlier on. That has not happened so far. By the way, it could still happen, but as I indicated, I think it's really, really unlikely that it will happen in time, even for a delayed event, to be honest. Yep.
They technically possible, though. Could in theory the figure skating event be delayed for this to happen?
That would be under IF rules, I guess. I couldn't tell you exactly. I'm sure it could be technically. I don't know, to be honest. We can get you an answer about that afterwards. Okay, let's come to down here. Gentleman there, yeah, with the blue, and then lady in black. Yeah.
I want to ask kind of a follow-up question to this about what's still unclear in this negotiation. Is it possible that based on the CAS ruling, Ms. Valieva will be allowed to compete, but under IOC's decision-making will not be eligible for a medal?
That's what I was trying to explain earlier on, that these are two separate things, that this is purely about whether the suspension will be lifted or not.
And so it's conceivable that the suspension will be lifted, she'll be allowed to compete, but then the IOC will determine that she is not eligible for a medal.
I think we need to wait for the ruling before I start speculating from the stage as a media person about what I think the points of law were. But this specific decision in coming in 2-3 hours' time is about whether she can compete or not. All the other issues will then have to be discussed further into the games, and that will include, by the way, the presentation of the medals to the teams.
So that's that question of which teams will get medals, that has not been sorted out?
No, this will not be sorted out by this decision. This will not be sorted out by this decision. And by the way, and it's a dilemma we're all in, and it's something we're not happy with, that will not be probably sorted out here during these games, and it's something that is regrettable, but we have to follow the process of CAS and the legal process. Yeah, lady in black, I think, wanted to ask a question. Yeah.
你好，中国新闻社的记者王浩有问题想问杨洋。您刚才也提到了，您会用这些女运动员的故事来激励女儿。那您觉得这些女孩们可以从这些运动员的故事当中学习到什么？会不会有更多女孩因此投身于体育事业，创造好成绩？另外还想问说，您个人对于新一代的女性运动员有什么寄语？会不会做一些什么帮助她们取得更好的成绩？谢谢。
谢谢你的问题。我觉得运动是有很大的有2种的这个价值啊，当然有很多种，但是我对于孩子来说，我觉得能够发挥他们的潜力，然后让他们追逐梦想，这是一个。另外一个，其实不一定非要去做特别专业的运动员，但是通过运动，他同样可以去表达自己，同样可以去让自己变得更好。所以我们叫体育教育。所以我是大力的呼吁我们的女孩子多多参与体育运动，那么能够在运动当中发现更好的自己是特别重要的。 所以包括我自己也有自己的 skating club， 所以有很多的女孩子都在参与运动。那么每天我都会被她们的这个精神受鼓舞。那么所以我非常相信体育的力量，能够让更多的女孩子发现更好的自己。谢谢。
Yeah, gentlemen. No, lady there, I think, in the I can't see, I do apologize. Is it Wakako? Yes, sorry. I do apologize, Wakako. Your question.
Thank you, Mark. Just one confirmation and then one question to Yanis. So about this women's competition, even if Valieva will be allowed to compete, I thought you mentioned that women's medal ceremony also probably would not take place because of the situation, or it will take place, but a medal will be reallocated. Yanis, during your opening remarks, you said shocking 4% of world media are covering women's sport. And my understanding is that the Olympic Games coverage is the only thing which would make it much closer to 50-50. What is your consideration there, as well as what you would appeal to the world media to change? Thank you.
Yuki, yes, correct. This is a figure that was the result of a research that was done 2 years ago, and it was identified that the overall coverage of women's sport among sports media is only 4%. Now, whether it is 3.8 or 4.6, I don't think it makes a difference. It's very clear that to a very big extent, if we see the global picture in the world, women's sport do not have the presence that they should have in media. And why is this important? Precisely because of the reasons that Yang mentioned. This is the conduit through which younger women will get inspired to take up sport as a way of empowerment. We know that sports, beyond its self-importance, sport is one of the areas where empowerment of people is very, very drastic, very fast and very strong. So I think this is important to remember. Yes, in the Olympic Games, both summer and winter, I don't think that there are many other sporting events in the world where essentially the focus is the same, the value of the events is the same, the attention is the same, the field of play, the broadcast coverage, very, very important. And I think that one of the recommendations among many others that could have is for us in media to start rethinking about the perceived value of portraying women's sport. There is a very traditional idea that people simply don't care, they don't follow women's sport. Well, I think this is a relic from very old ages. It is not the reality. It starts being proven that media who portray women's sport have a very, very good traction with that. It's also very clear now that among the younger generations, more than 70% of men do follow women's sports as they do men's sports. So some traditional barriers that were there have probably moved in society, and I have a feeling that sometimes ourselves in media, we are not in keep with what's going on in society, especially among the younger generation. So this would be a strong encouragement. We see it with our broadcasters. You know, Eileen Gu is the biggest story in the games. It's the biggest moment so far we have seen. It's in a women's competition.
Thanks, Yanis. To your first question, do you want to follow up, or you want me to answer the question? Yeah. So obviously, you put your finger on the dilemma that we find ourselves in, and this is the terrible dilemma that we have. The decision which will come is a decision only on whether the suspension will be lifted or not, whether the skater can take part, whether Kamila Valieva can take part or not take part. So I think it would only be wise to wait for that decision and see what the ramifications are. We would, in principle, like to see everything happen, medal ceremonies, competition, whatever, but we have to really wait until that decision, and you don't have to wait very long, hopefully. Yeah, lady there in grey, I think, with your hand up. Yeah. Yes, that's you looking round. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'm with Reuters. Questions for Madame Yang. There has been some discussions about the foreign-born athletes competing for China, such as Eileen Gu and many on the men's and the women's ice hockey team. Even though China does not recognize dual citizenship, so wonder what do you have any comments on that? And also, there has been some internet violence against some non-China-born athletes who were considered not performing very well this time. So has the athlete committee done anything to protect these athletes since? Thanks.
谢谢你的问题。May I answer in Chinese or English? Chinese, okay? Okay. 谢谢你的问题。其实体育交流是一个比较常见的。那么不光是北京冬奥会期间，其实在平昌在之前的奥运会里边都有这样的交流。也有这个包括那么对于你刚才提的几个案例呢，我相信都是按照我们的相关的程序、相关的法律，包括国际奥委会的相关要求去做的。那么这一点呢，我也非常尊重他们的这样的一个选择。那我相信他们的表现能够让我们看到更多的这个运动员的这样的一个影响力。那第二个问题呢是关于网上的相关情况。其实我前2天也在电视上做了一个表达，那也算是代表运动员委员会吧。我觉得这个每一位运动员都在全力以赴做到他最好的这个表现。那么在比赛当中，无论是成功还是失败，都是他成长的过程。那么我们应该尊重他们的这样的一个这个甚至要学会去欣赏每个人出现失败的时候的这个这样的一个表现。那么更多的去鼓励他们。所以说我觉得现在的我也希望能够有更多积极的这个表达，能够去支持这些在比赛当中失误的运动员。那么这些都是运动员成长的过程。我曾经想如果2002年我的1000米第一项比赛之后，如果出现像前段时间网上出现的那些不好的声音，那我很难再去在第2项当中能够反转打回来，能够再一次的这个站到比赛现场。所以我特别能理解这些运动员的这个处境。那么也呼吁在这个对于网络的这样的一些怎么说呢？这样的一些声音吧，能够让我们去更多的给一些运动员一些理解吧。
Hi, 谢谢 Mark. I'd like to make a few additional remarks.
Sorry, I missed that. What
I said, Mark, can I make some additional remarks?
But by all means, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. 我非常同意杨洋刚才说的。北京冬奥组委呢，我们一直都是在大力的倡导相互的理解、友谊、团结和公平竞争的这个奥林匹克的精神。我是注意到很多的网民，在网上是为各国运动员，都在点赞。那么，运动员他在追逐梦想和挑战极限的这么一个过程当中呢，他难免是会遇到一些困难和挫折的。我想，正是他们这种越挫越勇、百折不挠的精神，是生动地诠释了这个奥林匹克更快、更高、更强、更团结这样的一个格言。我们中国也是说这个不以成败论英雄，所以我们是呼吁所有的人为所有的各国的运动员，为他们的拼搏和努力，喝彩。我们也祝愿各国的运动员都能在北京冬奥会的这个赛场上，能够挑战自我、超越自我，能够实现自己的梦想。谢谢。
Okay, lady over there in pink, and then we'll come down here, and then we'll move over here for a bit. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I'm from CMG. 刚才我们这个问题 关于男女平等问题，都是在这个运动里面哈，运动员还有运动项目。我想给北京冬奥组委提一个问题：在整个冬奥会筹办过程中，咱们冬奥组委有多少的女性比例？那在招募的志愿者中有多少的女性比例？那我想，特别是在张家口、延庆这么寒冷的天气里，女性工作可能更为的辛苦，有没有给他们提供一些额外的保障？咱们北京冬奥组委在促进这个男女平等方面做了哪些工作？谢谢。
谢谢你的提问。首先呢，我要向这个所有的这个冬奥会上，北京冬奥会上所有的女性的运动员、女性的记者、女性的工作人员，还有咱们的志愿者，表达这个敬意。那么今天是与女性主旗这个相关的哈，所以我其实也特意做了一些功课，我可以跟大家分享一组数据。首先呢，是我刚才最开头的时候提到了。北京冬奥会呢是这个女性的运动员参赛比例最高的一届冬奥会，那么参赛的比例达到了45%。同时呢，这个女性运动员参与的项目也是达到了历届的最多，在全部109个小项当中，女子的项目达到了46个，男女混合和团体的项目是4个。新增的项目也充分地考虑了女性运动员参赛的问题。新增的这个7个小项当中呢，2个是女子单项，4个是混合团体项目，仅有1个是男子单项。这个也充分地体现了就是这个奥林匹克2020议程当中关于这个推动运动中的性别平等的这样一个理念。你刚才问到了这个北京冬奥组委这个一些工作人员的一些数字什么的哈，我想说一下呢，就是北京冬奥组委我们在促进性别平等方面也做了一些工作，主要呢是有首先呢我想到的是在促进组委会的性别平等方面，包括促进各个岗位的这个性别平等方面。那么北京冬奥组委的工作人员中，女性员工的比例是不低于40%，女性志愿者的比例是不低于50%。那么我们运动员委员会的主席是由杨洋来担任，而且他刚才说了，在这个运动员委员会里，女性的比例是大大的高于50%。第二方面呢，是我们是促进这个工作岗位的平等权益，加强对女性同仁的保障。保证相同的岗位，女性和男性同仁有平等的工资薪酬。第3个呢，是为这个女性运动员和涉奥人员提供安全的体育环境。在3个冬奥村的综合诊所呢，都专门设置了女性的诊疗室和治疗室，也配备专业的妇科医师和诊疗服务，为女性的涉奥人员提供服务。第4呢，是我们实施了这个中小学的奥林匹克教育计划，为男女学生提供平等参与这个冰雪运动的机会，男孩子和女孩子从小就是平等的。最后呢，我想说呢，就是对于中国来说，这个坚持男女平等是中国的一个基本国策，写入了宪法。在中国我们都说，可能很多人也都知道，妇女能顶半边天，有的时候是顶了半边多的天。那么妇女在中国被认为是人类文明的开创者，社会进步的推动者，在各行各业都在书写着不平凡的成就。我这回答有点长，谢谢你。
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good morning, Vanessa Lee with CTV Canadian Television. Regardless of the ruling, there was a positive test. Could harsher sanctions against Russia have prevented a situation like this? And can we expect to be back in this room this afternoon for the IOC's reaction?
What I would remind you of is that there's an ongoing case, and we still have to find out what the ruling of that is. The sanctions taken against the Russians, against the Russian team, were brought forward by WADA, and were actually marginally diluted, I think, by the Court of Arbitration in Sport. So those were the sanctions that were deemed fit and legally fit for the Russian team.
Yeah. Can we expect to be back here this afternoon then for the IOC's reaction?
I don't know. Let's wait to see what the decision is first before we decide what we're going to do about it. But yeah, what I can tell you is that we will follow the decision absolutely, because that's our job. We have to follow the ruling of CAS, and we will follow that decision to the letter. Whether sometimes we like decisions, sometimes we don't like decisions, but it's like the law in any country. You should follow it, and we will follow the ruling of CAS. Yes.
Hi, Mark.
Inside the game.
Mark.
Yeah.
I think I forgot to address some of the points that have been raised by the lady journalist there. So let me use Chinese.
Yeah, if you could briefly, because we're coming
Okay.
near the end. Yeah.
你刚才提到，在这个寒冷的天气下，对于中方的工作人员有没有一些什么特殊的保护措施？那么在寒冷、低温和大风的这个环境下工作呢，对在冬奥会期间这个工作人员啊，他们必须面对的一个很大的一个挑战。那么我们主要是通过服装的保暖啊、辅助的保暖，还有轮岗的排班，还有餐食保障等各个方面的措施，来帮助工作人员克服寒冷天气带来的困难。同时我们也有一些岗前的培训，确保这些工作人员和志愿者他都充分的了解防寒、防冻、防风的一些相关的措施。谢谢。
Thank you very much. Let's go to inside the games. We're past the hour mark, but
Michael
do
Pavic
carry on,
from
Michael.
Inside the Games. Mark, the IOC of the last few years talked about making the games more youthful, more gender balanced. It's a big reason we saw 13 and 14-year-old skateboarders last year in Tokyo. But at this Games, we've seen a 15-year-old come under huge pressure. The last few years, we've seen sort of welfare scandals, largely involving sort of younger female athletes. How damaging is this to what the IOC are trying to achieve, what they're trying to do?
Well, I think, as I said to a previous question, there's a balance here. We have to offer everyone we can the chance to follow their Olympic dream, and I think everyone would like to see younger athletes involved, and everyone will remember from Tokyo some of the amazing performances, for example, in skateboarding. But there is a balance and there is a challenge, and that's the welfare of the athletes. And I went through the measures that I think I know that are being taken. We need to do, of course, always. Everyone needs to do more in these cases. But it starts with the NOC, with support from the IOC. But I think what would be disappointing is if somehow we didn't allow the opportunity for these athletes to grasp their dreams. So with that, I think it is. I think 3 minutes past 12. I tell you what, we'll take one more from CBS, I think, this time. Yeah.
We'll get that figured out by the end. I wanted to ask you, Mark, the way this has all worked is obviously it's been an uncomfortable situation, the Valieva case, something that probably everyone wishes wasn't involved. With the methods that are in place, has this gone as smoothly as it could have gone, you feel, the process and A to B to C, and obviously we're coming up to the decision this afternoon. Has it gone as smoothly with the mechanisms that are in place as it could have gone?
Well, as you know, two things to say to that. One is, obviously, we would like to see a resolution as quickly as possible, and I think everyone wants to see that because it would give it clarity. And at the moment, unfortunately, there is no clarity, and that may still be the case after we've had the ruling in terms of what the next steps will be. We'll have the initial decision about whether she can compete or not compete. But what I would also say is that we took a strategic decision some time ago to give testing and sanctioning to independent organisations because we didn't even want the appearance of a conflict of interest, and I think that's very important. So I won't be involved. There will be, I'm sure, a whole range of inquiries into the testing in Stockholm and so on. That's not up to me. That's not up to the IOC in the first instance to look into. That's up to independent organisations. I'm sure that the full truth will come out and we will all be able to discuss it, but I won't be able to say any more about that at this stage.
I just meant the cards you've been dealt. Do you think this has been handled as well as it could have been with the cards that you've been dealt?
all I will say is that this is an incredibly complicated case. I mean, it's incredibly complicated, but I think it's also very important that we all stay in our lanes, that we all stick to the functions that we are supposed to carry out. We will stick to ours. We will try to deliver the games as best we can, but we need to respect the ruling that will come this afternoon. So I'm sure, like all of you, I'm looking forward to finding out what that is in the next few hours. Thank you very much, everybody. I will see you all again at 11 tomorrow, if not before. Thank you very much.
2021中天乘风破浪，观看次数翻倍成长。中天关台后至今1年，总观看次数达24亿次。转型后获得更多观众认可，其中新闻类内容最高单日观看次数更突破1200万次，创下新高纪录。中天观众具高粘性和高沉浸感。SimilarWeb 在2020年12月公布的台湾数据，使用者每次到访 YouTube 的停留时间为23分23秒。中天在 YouTube 的24小时新闻直播，每位观众平均每次观看时间长达近30分钟。中天在 YouTube 触及更广大的群众。根据了财团法人台湾网络资讯中心发布的2020年台湾网络报告，台湾12岁以上的整体上网人数为1778万人。中天频道家族平均1个月不重复的观看人数就超过1500万人。今年5、6、7月不重复的观看人数更超过了1800万人。中天影片最受观众喜欢。统计2020年11月到2021年10月这1年中，新闻与政治类频道每月获得最多喜欢的 Top 10影片，中天就占了91%，其中正常发挥影片更占了59%，在所有频道当中拿到第1名。转型到网络后的中天，仍专注做好新闻内容，获得广大网友肯定。有中天，有真相，重大事件看中天。